All right, now we're ready to re-implement this validate property method and get rid of these ugly if statements. So we're going to take the same approach we took in our validate method. So we should call joy.validate. Now, as the first argument, we cannot pass this .state.account because this will validate the entire account object or the entire form. In this particular case, we only want to validate one input field. So we should create another object. In this object, we should have only a single property. The name of that property should be set dynamically based on the value of this name argument. So if name is username, this object should have a property called username, and the value of that property should be what we get here, like this. But we don't want to hardcode username here. We want this to be set dynamically. That's where we use computed properties in ES6. So we replace this hard-coded key with square brackets and pass name. So whatever name is at runtime, that will be used to set the key, okay? So we pass our object here. Now as the second argument, we need to pass a schema. Once again, we cannot pass this .schema because this is the schema for the entire form. If we pass this simple object that has only a single property and validate it against this schema, Joy is going to scream at us, say, hey, this object doesn't have this property and that property and that property. So we need to give it a sub-schema, a simple schema with only one property. Let's take a look at our existing schema. So this is our schema object. So if you're validating the username field, we should have a schema object that has only this property. Okay, so here I'm going to define a new constant, schema. We set it to a new object. This object should have only one property. The name of that property should be set dynamically at runtime. Once again, we use computed properties. So we pass name here. Now, what is the value? The value is not the value of the input field. We should get this value from this schema object. So we go to this object, we find a property with the given name, and whatever its value is, we're going to reuse this value. So here, the value should be this .schema of name. Okay, so with this, instead of passing this .schema, we'll pass schema. Now in this particular case, we don't need to pass the options argument for aborting early. That is unnecessary. In fact, we want to abort early because there might be, let's say, 3 validation errors with the given field. We don't want to display all those validation errors at once next to this field because from a usability point of view, that is confusing. It's better to display one validation error at a time. Otherwise, it's like the form is screaming at the user. Hey, this username should be a minimum of 3 characters and maximum of 10 characters and have a dot and 2 numbers. That is too much. So we don't want to abort early. Now, once again, this will return a result object. We'll pick the error property. Now, if error is null, we'll return null. Otherwise, we'll return error dot details of 0. We get the first detail, and as you remember, this object has a message property, so we'll return that. And of course, we can rewrite these last 2 lines using the ternary operator. So we'll return, if error is defined, we'll return error.details of 0.message. Otherwise, we'll return null. And with this, we no longer need these 2 statements. That is better. All right, let's test our form. So I'm going to type 1 character here and then delete it. We get our error message. Beautiful. So with Joy, we're defining our schema in one place. And unlike our previous implementation, we have not repeated the validation rules for each field. Now, chances are you might be a little bit confused about the implementation of validate and validate property methods. Don't worry about this because soon we're going to extract a reusable component so you don't have to re-implement these methods ever again. The only time you had to do this was during this course. In the future, whenever you build a form, all you have to do is defining the schema. That's all. And you will see that soon.